It is impossible to stay isolated in a globalized world. Because of constant foreign adventures, however, many Americans believe total disengagement is something we can afford to do and that we are able to do. That is why I'm going to talk about engaging abroad today. My name is Connor Copeland, and as an aspiring foreign policy consultant and security studies student, this subject area matters to me. Ever since 2001, the United States has sought a policy of interventionism in the Middle East, with often inconsistent fluctuations on policies of engagement, such as should the United States send ground troops, only use air power, apply economic sanctions, or even get involved at all. I'm aware that the discourse surrounding, U.S. foreign policy is mind-numbingly polarizing in terms of how people believe, absolutely we should or shouldn't intervene. But I believe it is worth examining. Many journalists I respect, such as Chris Hedges, argue that excessive military spending is one of the key indicators of civilization in decline. I'm inclined to agree with them, especially given my area of studies. So why then am I going to argue that the US should continue to intervene, albeit to a much more modified degree than present within Syria? I derive my opinions on foreign policy eclectically, based off of my foreign policy framework, as well as what I think does and doesn't work when engaging abroad. I don't think the situation in Syria, at least to the degree to which I wish to engage, is as blatantly, expensive, unethical, or strategically ill-advised as our wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. So if this war is different, then how? Allow me to explain. The Kurds are the main reason I believe why the U.S. should maintain some presence within Syria. You may be asking yourself, well, Connor, didn't we just pull out and leave there not too long ago? Well, yes and no. As you may remember, in October of last year, Trump decided to pull out of Syria in a move that, as The Atlantic reported, was widely criticized by both Kurds within Syria and senior officers within the U.S. military. Worse yet, as the New York Times reports, this was done right after Trump had asked the Kurds to dismantle their military defenses in northern Syria along the border of Turkey in order to appease Erdogan in Turkey. Right after this happened, the Turkish army invaded, uh, and once that occurred, Trump decided to reverse order. That is to say, he sent back some troops once this had happened. However, it was in a much smaller area than previously. The results of this had immediate consequences. So, for example, the Turkish army immediately intervened, has committed war crimes. Most of Syria's Kurds are now aligned with Bashar al-Assad and Vladimir Putin, and we've severely limited our range of operations by pushing most of our former allies into the sphere and influence of dictators. Mind you, I don't believe that the U.S. is a shining beacon that can do no wrong in this area, but I think it's safe to say that despite our flaws, it's probably preferable that we have more influence in this area than two literal dictators. So, what then? Do we owe the Kurds our support? In some sense, I would say yes, because this is not the first time we've backstabbed them. It happened before in Iraq when we didn't protect them against Saddam and his gas attacks. It also happened during their independence referendum, where we didn't back them despite the fact that they acted on our behalf with the belief that we would support them politically. And I believe that betrayal is still ongoing to this day. We are in part responsible for this situation historically, and as such, I believe that the United States has the moral obligation to, at the very least, prevent undue harm from falling on a group that I believe was instrumental in defeating ISIS. And as CNN reports, they were instrumental in taking over ISIS's last stronghold within Syria. The Kurds are also one of the few areas in the region that hold respectable democratic elections, including ones with female candidates and administrators. On that topic, it is one of the fewer still that doesn't have excessively misogynistic laws in place and pervasively misogynistic social attitudes towards women in this area. I believe this is a project that is noble enough to stick our necks out to save. And if we do nothing, it's sure to end. On their doorstep, Turkey, a country with this history of systemic racism against the Kurds, borders them. It's a country that has even banned the word Kurd as an expression of self-identity within their territory. Has previously and still does show a capability and desire to ethnically cleanse Kurds, not only within their territories, but also other ethnic minorities within their territories as well. In the areas of northern Syria, Turkey is occupied. They've already had reports of war crimes, sexual assaults, and has confirmed reports of executions of democratically elected politicians within the region, as The Guardian reports. There are proven ways, in my mind, to prevent tragedies like this, just like what happened before. We can keep a small presence within that area that'll keep Turkey, Putin, and Assad from just simply rolling them over. It doesn't need to be huge, but it needs to be enough to make sure that Turkey's proxy rebels, Putin's ground forces in Syria, and Bashar's ground forces from biting off more than they can chew. I believe a codified, obligatory relationship is warranted in this area, to have a bilateral agreement between us and the Kurds in order to protect their sovereignty and their political project. And I think that, furthermore, given all that we've helped put them through and all they've done for us in terms of defeating ISIS in the area and helping stabilize their area and making it a place where democracy, equality, especially between the genders, and just overall, a history of not falling into despotism is something that I think is worth preserving. So I did get one question earlier, that it was, what is my stake in this? As someone who wants to work in foreign policy, I believe this is an area of the world that we should keep our eyes on, and I think as the United States, we should, as a country, do work abroad in order to help strengthen democratic projects as a matter of principle. These people helped us out. They're democratic. We are, supposedly democratic. And I just think overall that it is the right thing to do to uphold our previous responsibilities there and to continue to support an area of the world that is vulnerable on all sides, from dictators to jihadists to people who have a history of ethnic cleansing against them and systemic racism. And I believe, as the world power, that we should act in a way that would help prevent these atrocities from happening, especially if we have the capacity to do so. Thank you for listening.